I'm Mr. Beat. Some of you know me very well, even though we've never met before. In fact, it may feel like we're friends. But here's the thing. I probably don't know you. In fact, and I feel like I have to apologize for this, but you're likely a stranger to me. Now, when I do typically meet viewers of my videos, it's freaking awesome. Viewers of my videos tend to be really interesting people, let me tell you. However, it's just not possible for me to meet all of you. What I just described is a parasocial relationship. A parasocial relationship is an imaginary friendship with a public figure, even if that public figure is a Z-list celebrity like myself. So yeah, imaginary friends aren't just for kids. Parasocial relationships are one-sided. On one side, a person knows a lot about the person on the other side. And the person on the other side, that's a person who often knows absolutely nothing about the person on the other side. Pretty much all of us are in some kind of parasocial relationship, whether we realize it or not. My daughters are in one, with Lauren Z side and Mariah Elizabeth. By the way, if you two ever want to collaborate, I would totally be interested because it would help my relationship with them. Know what I'm saying? Because they would finally think I was cool. Anyway, two dudes, Donald Horton and R. Richard Wohl, first articulated the idea of parasocial relationships back in 1956 to describe specifically the relationship viewers had with TV stars. In the age of social media, especially with platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, the phenomenon seems to have become extremely common and something that we all know exists, but perhaps don't spend enough time reflecting on. So are parasocial relationships bad for us? Well, there is evidence that parasocial relationships are perfectly normal and actually help a lot of people. They often inspire us to do good stuff. They help us feel less lonely, especially when we interact with others who have a parasocial relationship with the same public figure that we do. This is why fandoms form. And fandoms are awesome because they lead to real friendships. We can learn from parasocial relationships. In fact, you may learn a lot about American history from me because of our parasocial relationship. Parasocial relationships help us accept who we truly are. Perhaps we don't know anyone in real life who is going through what we are. Well, there are plenty of people online that do and will often connect with such a person. Parasocial relationships are even a way to live vicariously through someone else. Sure, we may never get the opportunity to travel to every country in the world, but at least we can alongside our BFF Drew Binsky. Even though parasocial relationships are common and can be beneficial, they can also be bad if they become extreme enough to mess up regular, real life relationships. For example, if you think a Twitch streamer understands you better than your friends, this is a red flag. You see, when we invest too much in a parasocial relationship, it can hurt our real life relationships. Also, when we invest too much in a parasocial relationship, when it abruptly ends without our control, it can be devastating. Sometimes parasocial relationships can actually make us feel more lonely because we can become so into them that we neglect our real life relationships. Parasocial relationships may cause us to unfairly compare our lives to the lives of public figures, which makes us feel worse about ourselves. And finally, parasocial relationships can even hurt public figures, especially content creators. Audiences can both demand and expect too much from creators. There's even this thing called audience capture, in which creators, become captured by their audience, almost as if they are held hostage by them. Sure, it starts out as an influencer just wanting to create more content their audience wants, but it ultimately turns into a creator abandoning their whole identity and replacing it with one entirely made for their audience. But before I add another twist to this story, let me tell you about the parasocial relationships that I am in. First of all, as a younger man, I used to listen to a lot of Joe Rogan. I mean, a lot of Joe Rogan. To a point where it felt like he was an actual friend of mine. I stopped listening to him after it began to seem that his values were clashing with mine, but only after a period of several years. I bring this up because that's exactly how real life friendships work. You don't just become best friends with someone right when you meet them.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep!
No, that's typically not how it works. It's often a long process. On the flip side, friendships don't often abruptly end. They fade, and often because people's values change. But don't get me wrong, I'm still in other parasocial relationships. Two of my favorite YouTubers are Jay Foreman and RM Brown. Jay Foreman is a London-based YouTuber, musician, and comedian who makes ridiculously entertaining geography videos. RM Brown is a surrealist comedy YouTuber who reacts to wacky political content. I pretty much watch all their stuff. I feel like I know both of them very well. It almost feels like we're friends. But we're not. Want to know how I know? Well, about once a month I do this live stream / podcast called 10 Questions. For each episode, I have a guest who I have on and ask, you guessed it, 10 open-ended questions. But the unique thing about it is that the guest also has to interview me. They have to also ask me 10 open-ended questions, and it has led to some great conversations. In particular, though, I have found this works quite well when the guest is either already my friend in real life or is at least a viewer of my videos. However, when they are not, it's a bit awkward, as demonstrated with the episode I did with RM Brown. Fortunately, RM Brown was at least familiar with me and my videos before we did the stream, but otherwise, I think he didn't know me that well at all, and it maybe even hurt the quality of his questions. At the very least, I felt guilty because I made him come up with 10 questions to ask me, even though he doesn't know who I am. And then there is Jay Foreman. Well, I have asked Jay Foreman to come on to 10 questions with me, and he has agreed to it, but ultimately, it hasn't happened, and I think I know why. I have a suspicion that it's the same situation as with RM Brown. He is simply not a viewer of mine, and that's okay. In fact, he may have not even heard of me before I reached out to him. Therefore, once again, there is this dynamic of me knowing him a lot and him not knowing me at all, and I think he is hesitant to do an episode because of a potentially awkward conversation. By the way, there are no hard feelings to Jay. I completely understand. I mean, obviously, hopefully I understand, since I am explaining parasocial relationships in this very video. But yeah, he shouldn't feel obligated to come on my show, and it'd be ridiculous for me to expect that. Otherwise, there is another phenomenon I've noticed that's adjacent to parasocial relationships. I call them semi-parasocial relationships. I have friends who I met in real life before I had a YouTube following. Friends who I do not see in person much anymore, if at all. However, they still know me, arguably as well as they did when we met in person regularly, when we did see each other all the time. And it might just be because they watch my videos. And they're awesome for doing that, by the way. However, since they don't make videos, I don't get to regularly watch them, then there's this imbalance. I feel like I don't know them as well as they know me, and it creates this weird dynamic. Related to this, you may have a friend from high school who you used to see every day. Maybe they were even your best friend. However, after high school, you both moved away and haven't seen each other since. Despite this, one of you may follow the other's social media posts very closely, despite the other person not following your social media posts at all. Due to how algorithms work, this high school friend is constantly seeing your updates, but you're not seeing theirs, leading to another form of a semi-parasocial relationship. I'll end this video by saying this. I'm sorry if anything I just said made you feel uncomfortable. I didn't mean to make you feel weird. I was just trying to explain parasocial relationships, as they're a pretty big part of our lives. I also want to apologize if this video made Jay Foreman or RM Brown uncomfortable. That was not my intent. Just be aware of your relationship to YouTubers like myself. Life is about relationships. Relationships are what make us most happy. So please, form a relationship with a person in the flesh. You will be happier for it. And I may not know you, but dadgummit, I want you to be happy. Well, that was meta, wasn't it? Not Meta the company, but you know what I mean. Speaking of Meta, I'm on Threads now, and I'm on Blue Sky. I'm trying to wean myself off of Twitter or X, whatever. So I'll make sure those links are in the description of this video so that you know we can keep this whole parasocial relationship thing going. Boy, this got really weird really fast. Thanks for watching. Just alienated half my audience.